Yes, this is going to be for Indie Author Magazine on our analysis of the Brandon Sanderson Kickstarter and how this helps indie authors.
Sure.
So tell me, how did you come across the video?
The video, you mean the Brandon Sanderson video?
Yeah.
I think it was in one of the Facebook groups and someone just posted, look at this or something with very little. And I'm not a person who watches 8-minute videos on YouTube
Right.
often. So it was I found it very captivating. What I didn't know then was that apparently he seeded to his group that he had a shocking secret that he has been keeping from them the day before.
Right.
Which, when I found that out a couple days later, I thought that was even more brilliant.
And the fact that he's been on YouTube like almost weekly now for a bit.
Yeah, that video is very well produced.
So well done.
And he's so charming in it. This is the thing that most indie authors don't do when they're on Kickstarter. Really, anyone is like, they come across like they're about to get a root canal. And that the absolute worst thing that could ever happen to them was for you backing their Kickstarter. And the worst thing that ever could happen is like that this book exists. So it was so great to watch him just so gleefully, boom, I wrote a book. And then go and be like, he was so delighted at the fact that he wrote this book. And then he puts another book down. I wrote actually 5 books, but not this one. One of them's going to be a graphic novel, but 4 books. And we have it on. It was so charming. And I don't know Brandon personally, but I know a lot of people who know him, and
Mhm.
they all to a T were like, that's who he is. He's always like that charming. He always is so pleased to meet fans and tickled that he has had any success at all. And it's great for a person like that to have that kind of success, because more often than not, the people that end up getting that success eventually become jaded to it. And they
Mhm.
eventually, I think unintentionally, I'm not saying they're bad for doing
Right.
this. They just like eventually, like, the level of success becomes their normal and they kind of acquiesce to it. And from what I've heard about Brandon Sanderson, not firsthand experience, like he's just as tickled about it today as he was 20 years ago when someone reads his book. And that's great.
I met him just as he had finished the last Wheel of Time book. Met him at our teen book festival in San Antonio, and we played a couple of games of Magic the Gathering. And if I hadn't known he was Brandon Sanderson, I would have thought he was like me, like indie published, geeking out about magic, geeking out about the story, da 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 da. Right? It is that he loves what he does, and that love grows anew every day for him. And I'm like, wow.
And he's very good at showing that he is passionate and that he loves his work. And indie artists, indie creators, really any creator, the thing that they seem to be worst at is the whole marketing thing. But like really the thing, if I could just pull one piece out, it's if they could just gleefully talk about their work in the way that I know they feel about it because they have told me in private about it. If they could just bring that passion out, like, it would change everything. And I really blame gurus for this, because the general practice that people talk about is like, when your book launches, send one email about it. Don't overwhelm people. Don't talk about it so much. Don't flood Twitter or Facebook or social media with it. Like, just be polite about it. And that's such bad advice. It's so bad. And I know for a fact that it's bad, because the worst launch I've ever had since I started my career was the launch that I followed that advice. And the minute that I started doing the thing that I normally do, which is talk passionately about it and like excitedly about it, like, people would email me and say, "Oh, I thought you hated this series because you didn't talk about it. You just were blah about it." So like I was blah about it. And there are nuggets of, hey, don't say the same thing 100 times on social media or like scream at people to buy your book. But like the idea that we shouldn't be passionate about the work and talk about it excitedly is patently ridiculous. And no more so than when you look at Brandon Sanderson's campaign, because I don't read a lot of Brandon Sanderson's work. I don't. I've read Emperor's Soul, which I love. And I just finished Rhythmatist. And it's because I generally, when I look at a series and it's 10 books and each book is like a phone book, I run away. The Emperor's Soul was great because it was like small and doable. And I was like, okay, I can read that. Rhythmatist is, I probably am butchering the name of that because it's such a weird like spelled word. But like that one is like a YA book. And so it's like, I could do that. My wife is the one who, like, if you see a book, every book's a phone book. I want everything. It says, stop the presses. I'm there. But literally just watching a minute of that video and you're like, I gotta read these books. I gotta so passionately talking about them. And it's so fun that like, I have to try it.
Yes. I love his absolutely about it. Wow. I saw my nerd friends, Tom Meadows, he wrote The Mantle with me, and his wife, my operations manager, sat me down and handed me the phone with the video queued up. And I watched it. And I watched it to the very end. And my first words were, I have never been so validated and vindicated in my life. Because I've been telling people, launch your book, give them a merch box, right?
Yeah.
And folks, I don't know, I didn't think, and complain and all that. And what is the largest Kickstarter in the history of Kickstarter have?
Merch box.
A merch box.
I felt vindicated too, because I have been telling people to launch multiple books at one time on Kickstarter, and people have told me I am crazy. And what Brandon Sanderson did, he launched 4 books at one time. So like, we both were vindicated by that campaign.
Yes. And then I just love the numbers. I love the numbers on this campaign. I'm looking it up now.
I believe it was at 24.5 million last time I looked.
Okay, it's 25.5 with 110, 100, it's 108. So 25.5, 108. Okay.
I mean, it's literally making $1 million a day in the middle of the dead zone of its campaign. It's making $1 million a day still. I told someone it could be a $50 million campaign, and they were like, that's crazy. And I was like, it's not crazy. He made $20 million in a day. He's got 30 more of them. I think the general rule is what you make on the first day, you can between 2 and 3x throughout the course of your campaign. So at the best, like maybe, but it can go as far as like the week of your campaign. I usually say like the first 5 days of your campaign, you can plan to double that in the dead zone. And then you can double it at the end as well, if you really are good. But I think it's safe to say that you can between 2 and 2.5x your first 3 or 4 day raise over the course of an entire campaign. Of course, that's depending on how long the campaign is. If you do a 5-day campaign, probably not, but the little more like a normal size campaign, you can probably double that, which is why it's so important to start well.
Right.
Because when you start, Kickstarter goes, oh, interesting. Now, Brandon Sanderson, they sent out a big email that was like, Brandon Sanderson is the biggest campaign of all time. And like our book, Cthulhu is hard to spell, was linked at the bottom of that email for some people, not everyone, but for some people.
I saw it.
And like, why do you think it was there? It was there because it was a popular campaign that was being very successful at the time. And they were like, I want to get some more of whatever this money is. So like, here's some other things. Right. And that only happened because we hit $20,000, which seems nothing in $20 million. But for $20,000, it's still pretty good in the first week of the campaign. And that populates more Kickstarter love from them putting you in other updates, and you have a better chance of being a featured project of the day and all of that other stuff, which is so funny that people don't understand that, because it is intrinsically the way that Amazon works and that they're told to do this on Amazon. Like,
yes,
Like the more success you have, the more Amazon will work for you. The
Right.
better you do, like the better your also bots will be. And the more you will show up like organically. And it is the same way on Kickstarter. The difference is Kickstarter does not have a advertising functionality. So they are only motivated by which things can I put in front of this person so they keep buying right now.
Right. It's amazing how when okay, let me phrase it this way. How much steam did you get from Sanderson and those also bucks? Because I saw it more than once.
We had a pretty good week, a better week than I thought we were going to have. I was expecting us to do 2,500 and we did 4,000 almost the
Nice.
second week. We got some juice. The publishing category is not what the comics category is. There just are not as many people searching as there are in the comics. Like when this happens in the comics category, like when someone has like a big book or the Keanu Reeves book had, like it's really helped like the whole category.
Right.
On top of that, Boom would go and give hundreds of dollars to like campaigns as well. So that was great on top of that. But there's just a nascent community there. The real problem right now with Kickstarter for publishing, I have tons of good stuff to say. Like what we are trying to build, Monica and I are trying to build is the infrastructure of a community in the way that comics and board games and film and some other places have the infrastructure. There's no infrastructure there. So when you go and you launch your book, you are very much alone, especially as a fiction author. With comics, there's a whole slew of things that we do in comics to bring the community together where we do backer swaps and we do live streams and we do all sorts of literally like every day of this campaign. I've got one, sometimes two things to do. Like I'm right after this, I'm going on a live stream to promote the book. And there's none of that. There's none of that really in the publishing side of things.
Right.
And it's very apparent when you go there. What we are trying to do is build this thing out. And the opportunity that you have here is you have the opportunity, if you commit to launching your books 3 to 4 times a year, so, on Kickstarter of all types, board games, comics, or whatever the things are, like you're going to start seeing the same people. And once you have the same people that are launching consistently, you then have a community of people that you can network with and do cross promotions with. Right now, it's very hard to be like, who's going to actually deliver their Kickstarter campaign? In comics, because it's just been around for a lot longer, the community's a lot longer. Who's going to mess up and who's going to deliver and who to promote and who not to promote with.
Right.
So that is the downside. Like you're in a very nascent stage of Amazon where the books are nebulously good. Some are amazing, many are good, and some are like, what did you even put on here? I don't understand. And it's not easy. Not that any Kickstarter is easy, but it's not an easy thing to be in the publishing category right now.
Right.
I would say probably it's easier to launch a comic book of your book and then, or board game, and then try and bring those people back to the publishing right now. But there's a lot of really cool people that are doing publishing. And
Right.
it's a very small community. And just by doing it, you are in the community. It's not like Amazon where there's a lot of gatekeeping to like fandoms and stuff. Like simply being like, wow, you launched a novel on Kickstarter. That puts you in like the club. Like you're in the club just by doing that. Now you can get kicked out of that club of being a jerk or something, but like you're in the club just by being crazy enough to try this thing that is so nascent.
Right.
That being said, there's a lot of upsides. There's just so many upsides for being on Kickstarter and just so many.
Yes, absolutely. And then I was also thinking about once I talk about how I experienced this, I'm going to mention that we're going to talk, but first break down the numbers because the numbers have stayed very consistent throughout here. On average, in the first 24 hours, the average backer was pledging about $278. And it's only dropped to 236 now, which indicates that the vast majority of the people who are pledging or even pledging at the high just the books level or the low your Sanderson level, which is right in there. And he has made $25 million gross with 100,000 people, 110,000 people buy his books.
Yep. Yeah. This is the big thing about Kickstarter that I always am talking about. And I feel it's finally getting through. On Kickstarter, you make way more money from way less people. So there's 4 of these books, right? So like some of the people, these are the people that are going to buy all 4 books. It's like that 100,000 people is 400,000 sales.
Right.
A minuscule number for Brandon Sanderson, who makes $2.5 million or more, roughly in some figure between there, depending on the book, depending on the series, like per book he writes as an advance. So let's say he sells 1 million copies of a book. That's 40% of his sales.
Right.
That's 40% of his sales. Those people have still spent the money. Right. Like people have said this all of the time. What's gross, not net, you should say, but they still spent that amount. Like to the consumer, it was still $250. Like it wasn't like, oh, this is really only $40 because Brandon Sanderson's only going to get $50 of this money. No, they are spending $250, $25 million. Like,
right. Because $25 million was spent.
Yeah. Like even if you say he gets a $10 million advancing over 4 books, that's still 2.5 times more that he's made on these. And more importantly, he has retained the audiobook rights. He has retained all rights at this point, and he is not doing a paperback. He's doing a collector edition. So he can sell the hardcover rights, the paperback rights. He could sell the audiobook rights to do an ensemble, because you can have 2 on Audible. You can have 2 audiobooks at any one time. You can have one narrated by a single narrator. You can have a full cast.
Right.
So I'm guessing he's not doing both of them. He's probably doing these single narrators. We could sell the single cast. He can probably somehow sell the ebook rights. I don't know how he would sell the ebook rights because it's a collector edition, maybe that's a collector edition ebook and they can sell the regular ones. But for sure, you can sell the mass market, the trade, and regular hardcover rights. And if not the regular hardcover rights, at least those 2. And he's going to make, based on the cost of this kit, at least $1 million each of those books.
Right.
So like he's also making $1 million or maybe $2 million for each of those sets, but at least $1 million on the mass market for each of those books, which means he's made also like a third of his advance on mass market book. And also there's this economy of scale, right? Because this campaign is so massive, his costs are going to be per book, like minuscule. When like you'll pay $7 for a book, he'll pay 25 cents for that book. Same thing with the pins and the prints and all of that stuff. And he does have a lot of infrastructure to put together, but he's pretty much got that infrastructure because of Dragonsteel.
He already has that infrastructure. He just has to scale it. And I'm quite sure that they were smart enough to imagine how far up they had to scale for. Yes, he has this.
This person would get $7 million. Like he knows what to do. 7 million times 4 is $28 million. So theoretically, he's still in the range of what he did that first campaign. He's going to end up way ahead of that, but he seems to like it. Like he seems to like having merch and having all of this stuff. Should you do that? You specifically, Chrishaun, should do that because you love merch and stuff.
Yes,
should random Joe person do it? No.
Should Russell do it? No, because Russell doesn't like doing physical stuff.
I do like pins. I do like pins. So this is the thing is when you bring it down to like our scale, like I fulfill for my garage. All of my books fit in my garage. Like I bring stuff in, I pack it. It takes a day, and I enjoy the process. Now, granted, I probably have Stockholm syndrome in myself into liking that process, but like I do, I enjoy printing all the stuff out, and I enjoy being like, oh, Jill and Fred, they're coming back for another one. Oh, that's so nice. Like putting like little extras in and signing all the things. And I like the fact that when you are finishing a campaign, it feels like you've accomplished something.
Yeah.
As opposed to this morning, I was editing a book and I was like, I sent it off and some bits moved from my thing to like my editor's computer. And that was not feel satisfying, but like picking all of the books up and heaving them in your car and then bringing them to the post is like very satisfying. Maybe the only time that I truly feel like I've accomplished something ever, because it is like a physical manifestation. My room, my office gets all like full of books, and like it's great. And it's terrible and it's great. And
Right.
like, so I was at a convention and someone's, oh, don't you have to do this fulfillment? I was like, no, I get to do the fulfillment. I get to sign the books. I get to bring them to the post office. Like, I get to send them to my fans. That is what I get to do. It is a luxury and a privilege, not like a thing that I am forced to do, though it is also that.
Absolutely. I will have to argue that getting the actual physical objects back in the post is also that manifestation of what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Like the first time I opened up the box and I saw these, I was like, "Ah!" I
Yeah.
was- 2 months ago, I was eating a pot brownie and now it's in my hand.
Yeah, yeah, it's grand all around, and I must feel pretty good about it because I'm sitting in front of a literal physical representation of every book that I've put out. So yeah, it's like a wonderful feeling that can be very hard, and it probably will be very hard for the beginning of your campaigns. If you have never done one before, it is very different than putting a pre-order link up and then having Amazon fulfill everything. You get all of the books in and all of the things in, and like you have a list of what everybody's getting, and like you have to go through that list and give everyone what they ordered. And it's not as cut and dry as like, here's an Amazon link and there is the thing. But what you get is like money, because the other side of that is you probably aren't, if you're an indie author, unless you're in like the very top of making, like you are not making money on your books. Like you are not breaking even on your production costs. Like simply breaking even on your production costs puts you in an elite level of being an independent author. I know people who've been doing this for a decade and have never broken even on their production costs. Me either, but it is a thing. But if I was only doing Amazon sales, like I would never break. I'd be so far in the red right now that it would be laughable, like that I would continue doing this. And I'll bet that people look at my Amazon page and like, who is this dude who like he's ranked a bajillion in the Amazon store? Who is he to tell me? But I do very well on Kickstarter and at events, and like the ways that I do make money, I make money that way.
Right.
And the difference in Kickstarter is I have taught people who've never broken even on a book how to break even on a book. And then a month later, they've broken even on a book, like their first time maybe in their whole life. And even if they haven't broken even on that book, like they've made more money in one day. I've never had this happen. That's not true. I haven't asked everyone, but like when someone does like a small campaign, $1,000 campaign, and I know them personally, hey, out of curiosity, your first day, did you make the most you've ever made in any day as an author ever before? And I've never heard anyone say no, because one day they make $1,000, $500. And people are happy to have $500 for their whole launch, let alone like one day. And so you have the ability to like just blow out any expectation you had and make more money from your small fan base, which you probably have if you're an indie author. You probably have a small fan base. That's not like I have a small fan base. So you probably have a rather small fan base if you're an independent author, unless you like are a small handful of authors, and you can maximize them through Kickstarter. Brandon Sanderson shows how to maximize a big audience, a very big audience, but you can bring that down
Hmm.
to
Absolutely.
yourself.
I'd scale it down like this. The average pledge on Kickstarter is how much? Do you know?
$25.
Actually, it's a little bit more. It's within the 35 to 40 range. The average person pledges on Kickstarter. And so, even if we take your 25, you have 100 people pledge $25. How much is that?
It's $2,500. If 10
How,
people charge $25, that's $250. That's probably still more than most authors make on a launch.
I feel like 100 people give you $2,500, right? 100 people at your $2.78 royalty is what?
Yeah.
Maybe a burger? So think about that. That's how much you spent to produce the book. If you got fancy, right? But
Look,
it's
man,
just,
yeah. I've had books. I did a book last year that we had 130 people. We raised $4,600 from those
mhm,
people in a week and a half. I did a book that had 70 backers or something like that. I did $1,800.
mhm.
Like, in fact, I have never gone into an Amazon launch without having paid my production cost off, except the one time that I was told that I was convinced to not use Kickstarter because that's not how authors write launch books. I was like, okay, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it because like y'all say this is the exact way. And I followed Sean. You knew me then.
Yeah.
I followed it to a letter, to
Uh-huh.
a T. I
Uh-huh.
don't know if I put as much like advertising money behind it as they tell me to, but I followed that thing to a T, Chrishaun.
Mhm.
And the first book, I broke even. The next one, I made half break even. By the
Uh-huh.
fourth or fifth book, I'd made like $30 on that launch. And I looked at that and I was like, and I was like, oh my God, I'm $8,000 in the hole on these books. $8,000 still in the hole on these books. Like I was like, I can't spend money. How do I even spend money on uber unsuccessful? Like I'm going to put money into this uber unsuccessful launch now? No, I'm not doing that. So like I took all of those books and I brought them and I repackaged them and I brought them to Kickstarter. These books raised $10,000 in 2 weeks. 2 weeks. In a year that I had those books, the first two of the four books on Amazon, I made like $2,200 or something like that. Still a little bit better than the launch week. 10,000. That not only did that launch pay for the four books, it paid for a fifth book that became seven books. Those seven books raised so much money that I was able to go back and write four more books and also get like a bunch of interior art pieces done, like a timeline and a planet guide for fans, just for the heck of it. Like those, like I'm not saying I'm like Joe Amazon because I'm not Joe Amazon. Like you can look at my books. Like I literally haven't launched a novel on Amazon since I launched that novel on
Right.
Amazon.
Right.
So no, it's not true. I probably put some other books in it, but it's been since 2021. I said I'm not. We're in 22 now.
Yeah.
22 now. So it was at the beginning of 21. I said I'm not putting any more books on Amazon until like I have full series completed, like 10, 12 book series all completed, and then I will like bring the whole thing to Amazon and do a big launch.
Mhm.
Like between the 6 books I launched last year, including the one with Monica, I think we made like $84,000 across all of that stuff in just Kickstarter. Now, are you going to do that? No, you're probably not going to do that. I've been doing Kickstarter since 2014.
Right.
I'm very good at Kickstarter. I am particularly good at Kickstarter. I don't really understand how Amazon works or all of that, but I know how Kickstarter works. I get that. I'm particularly adept at that thing.
Mhm.
But could you make $1,000 every
Yeah.
time you launch?
Yeah. You
Yeah.
could.
I think you could make between $250 and $500 every time you launch a book.
Mhm.
Is that gonna like save your, I don't know, is that gonna make your career get to the next level? Like, no, probably not, but keep your
Yeah.
career going because
Right. It will give you a career.
yeah, like publishing is a war of attrition. The
Mhm.
goal of publishing from everyone I've ever talked to, except for the very rare author, especially in publishing houses, like what they say is my goal is to break even on this book. So I can break even on the next book. So I can break even on the next book. So I can find a hit in the fourth book or the fifth book that can pay for like the rest of the books. Because I've had a pretty varied career. Like I've done comics and novels and kids books and I've done everything. And like the way I'm able to plunge those depths that most authors can never plunge is because I know I will at least break even on my costs. Knock on wood. Like on Kickstarter, before I even launch, like I'll break even on the cost. And if it does great, dope. That's great. Like, awesome. I have another book that I can do, but it doesn't have to do great. It just has to break even and allow me to fight the other day. And most of us are losing that battle. Almost all authors are losing that battle every time they hit launch. And what they're doing is saying, can I afford to keep this series going? Can I afford to write the next book? Can I afford to do this? And of course, that if the calculus is I'm willing to lose $2,000 on a book because like that's how much it costs me to make a book.
Mhm.
And the best I'm going to do is to making $250 back. Yeah, that's like tough. It's a tough road to hoe if you're going to be down $1,000 every time you launch a book. But if you could break even on a book consistently, you suddenly have much different metrics. Be like, okay, do I have time to spend $1,000 to write this book if I'm only going to make $1,000 on it? And like that's a much different conversation. It's a much different conversation to say, I'm only going to make $1,000 instead of, do I eat or do I release this book?
Yeah. And that's the difference that makes a difference, truly. Honestly, that is an excellent way to launch a book, excellent way to break even. The scale works.
Scale
Right.
absolutely works because, like you mentioned, instead of making $250 a book, you're making $25 a book from that same person. And it's because you can do things that you just can't do on Amazon. Like you can offer Tuckerization, which is being written into the book. You can offer pins and prints and special covers. And like you could write a short story for somebody. Like you can like do all of these things. And I just skimmed the surface. You can do, but all of this stuff, you can bundle other books together. Like you can't bundle other books together on Amazon that are outside of that series.
Nope.
Like you can't do that. And I'm being like, it has to be in the series, not even related content to that series. It has to be like in that series if you want to like bundle stuff together. But like on Kickstarter, you can do all sorts of bundles. On the one we have now, like you can get my Kickstarter course. You can go and get any book I've ever done in one thing. Like you can pick whatever books you want, even if you don't want the book that I'm on Kickstarter with. You can pick other books if you want, like whatever the thing you want. There's so much flexibility, and that flexibility allows you to get so much more, to give so much more value to your people. And I want to make sure that's clear. Like I'm not talking about extracting or milking that backer. What I am saying is you can give a much better, deeper experience, just like Brandon Sanderson is doing, because that is to me the thing, one of the main things that he is showing. He didn't just say, here's a Kickstarter with some crap in it. He said, you guys have been asking me for book boxes. You have been asking me for this thing and this thing. So guess what? I took all of the things you said you wanted, and I am doing this campaign to give you the things that you want. And I think that cannot be overstated. He has catered a experience to his biggest, most ardent fans that he said, I hear you. I listened to you.
Mhm.
I developed an experience I think you'll like. Even when he said, I'm doing this as a surprise, he said, I'm doing this as a surprise because I think you're going to like it. If you don't like it, you come back here. I'll give you a synopsis of a book one time, once a week.
Right.
But if you don't, if you want the surprise, like I think you do, like, then just do the surprise.
Right.
And he's very clear about that. And so what he's done is found a way to give an experience to his fans that is high end
Yeah.
and that they want. And that is the goal. It's not just to be like, and I see this all the time. I have a book launch in a week. So like, I'm going to use this book, this book, I'll do a Kickstarter for it for a week. And then it'll just go on Amazon. And that is not Brandon Sanderson-esque.
No.
Brandon Sanderson would say, dude, that book shouldn't be coming out to people till 2024. It should be for backer. And I do this. I spent like a year. I have books from January 2021 that I've never seen Kickstarter. Some of them do because the comics really don't matter for Amazon. But like the novels, like these novels, you look at them, you go to my Amazon thing, and you're like, where are all of these books? There's 20 books there that are not on Amazon. And that's because I'm catering an experience to people. I'm giving them the option to do that. I know that they want to get the books before anyone else. They want to get it on Kickstarter, and they want all of the cool doodads and stuff that like I put into it. They want the special thanks. They want it being written into the book. All of those things are like very important to those fans. And that is what you can do. You can offer that experience to those fans who really want it. And by doing so, you will be able to get more money pledged from them. They will back at a higher level because you are in tune with your fan
Right.
instead of just like putting whatever book on Amazon, on Kickstarter and whatever.
Hmm. That makes sense. So you have Cthulhu's hard to sell, hard to spell. Hard to sell. It's not hard to sell at
It's
all.
not hard to sell at all.
Hard to spell though, and also hard to say. How many more days is that rolling?
So many more days. Like it ends a month from today. So it gets long. It's my longest campaign in years. Since 2017. It's my longest campaign in years. It's because we had this huge goal. And I was like, I need time to hit it. I need time to hit it. So like basically today would be the day I would launch this campaign normally. And so I
Right.
feel like, hey, we just launched the campaign already at $24,000. That's awesome. I'm not thinking about the fact that there's still a month left of this thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have that. And obviously we have the Kickstarter book, which we did last year and it's finally going to be shipped out soon. It's finally at Monica's house and she's shipping it. I already did all the book plates. So all she's got to do is like ship them and get them out. She said she already has all the packaging materials. But yeah, Cthulhu is hard to spell it may not be as instructive as Brandon Sanderson campaign, but I still find it very instructive for how to put together and then run a Kickstarter campaign when you're nobody. And this is the thing, like I am nobody. I'm like, I don't even have a presence really on Amazon or any of these places. Like I have a small fan base that like helps me make books, but I am nobody. And like I came from, I don't want to say came from nothing because like that is such like a trite observation, but I did not I don't come from a lineage of writers.
Hmm.
I don't come from like a school where was a writer. Like the writing, I don't come from a writing
Right.
program. I'm just some dude
Right.
who like wrote wrote some novels, then wrote some comics, then wrote some movies, then wrote some comics, then wrote some novels, and then was like, I'm going to see. And it literally changed my life. I could not pay someone to read my work
Hmm.
before 2014. In 2014, I came to Kickstarter and raised $5,500 in a month. Like I never raised that. I don't think in a year I'd made that much money from like my own writing. I worked in service professions and stuff and shot other movies and like photography and stuff that like paid money, but not from my own work. Like to make that kind of money, it's revolutionary. Like it is life changing to do that.
Right.
And I went for, and all I had before then was like, I had the book and I had a community that I'd built. Like I ingratiated myself with a bunch of comics people and I was like friends with them and we talked about comics and they were nice enough to buy the book and support the book. And that was amazing. But like I had that and I had the actual book that was good. And like those two things like helped us raise $5,000 and get this whole thing off the ground. The next year we did $8,900 or $8,700. And the next year I did 4 campaigns and that did not go very well. But I did break even on all of them or better. Like My Father Didn't Kill Himself, which is a Mr. Novel Children blog post. Like we raised $4,500 almost. And like that book cost like $1,500 to make. So I made $2,000 off a book where the cover is very off brand. This is the cover for that book.
Right.
I raised almost $3,500 from this book. Like you'd never do that on Amazon. Look at this cover. I love it. I love this cover, but it is not.
That is so much better than the first cover. I love this one so much better than the first cover.
That is the first cover. You're thinking of the Sorry for Existing cover, which is the My Spaceship Broken Need Repairs cover. That campaign, we raised from 75 people, $1,800. And it is I don't want to say it's ugly because like I love the cover, but it is so off brand. It is so off brand for the thing that it is.
Right.
That I can't believe anyone bought it, but they did because like they supported my work from the other work that I had done. We did a kid's book, Can't Stop Tooting, a Love Story, which was like a kid's book about farting. I did, yeah. And so we did that and we made the same amount that we made the first the second year, which was like, we're thinking like 7,500 on those 3 books, but each one of them did better than break even. It broke even and gave me a little bit of money to live to fight the next day.
Mm-hmm.
Then it wasn't until 2017, which is now 14, 15, 16, the 4th year that I was running campaigns, that I had the Smash Monsters and Other Scary Shit, which was $27,000, but only from 600 people. Like 600 people paid $27,000. It's eminently possible to find 600 people to give you $40 if you continually make things that they like. The problem is, if you're doing it all on Amazon, like, it's very hard to collect an audience because like they're collecting it, and then for that audience to find you. So Kickstarter makes it very easy because it gives you the email addresses of the people that bought your book. Got it. These are all the people that bought my book, the custom audience right there to run Facebook ads to, run lookalike audiences. But like, you got them. You can tell them that you ask them to join your main mailing list. Like, they're all right there. So that's the main thing. Like, the hardest thing to look at Brandon Sanderson campaign is to look at it and say, I will never, ever do that. I'm out of money. I won't. It is impossible. There may be 3 authors in the world that can do that. And the reason is because he has such a strong supply chain already.
Right.
Like, he already has
And
like,
he's worked 25 years to get it.
yeah, like there are 10 authors that like even have the audience of his size. But Stephen King doesn't have a supply chain. Like, he has the thing. He has this thing. John Scalzi said basically this, which was like, could I make as much as him? No, but I also have a supply chain that, like, I haven't spent 10 years building a bookstore and a supply chain and all of this stuff to build even more of that trust. Because part of this is Brandon Sanderson. Part of it is also he does and enjoys distribution. He enjoys this thing that he has built. So it takes both of those pieces. So like, you're never going to do Brandon says, and I don't want to make it seem like I'm telling you that you're going to go make $22 million, $25 million, because literally 2 campaigns ever have raised more than $20 million
Mm-hmm.
ever in the
Right.
15-year history of Kickstarter. 2 have raised over $20 million. Like, a handful have raised over $1 million. What I am saying, and what the Kickstarter is very possible for you, is to pay off your production costs and give you a little bit of extra money to go into marketing your book with when you do your Amazon and your full launch later. Like, it should be at the head of your campaign, just like I did that 20 books panel last year. It should be the head of your campaign before you do the other stuff, so that you can work on any problems with your copy during the Kickstarter, because there's no cost in changing copy or changing imagery or anything on Kickstarter. There is when you're running ads.
Right.
Like, you can do all of that stuff. You build a custom audience by people who bought your book, and then you can use them to build lookalike audiences and use that money that you've hopefully netted a couple $100 on top of the cost of your book,
Right.
to go into your launch free and clear. Most authors have never gone into their launch free and clear, ever. Most indie authors have never in their entire career known what it's like to, unless you have pre-orders that are more than the cost of your book, you have never gone into your launch free and clear. And I'm saying that Kickstarter is like the way to go into a campaign free and clear, and then do your launch as normal. And
Right. And see how you can make more profit.
yeah. Instead of spending the first 5 months of your campaign or 5 weeks of your campaign struggling to make what it costs to produce the book, you've already done it. Yay. And now you can make even more on your campaign and know that the book holds water. Or no, oh man, I barely made my money on this campaign. Like, maybe I should not put $10,000 into this book or $5,000 into this book. Maybe I just let it sit on Amazon, put a little bit of money behind it, and count my lucky stars that I avoided the nightmare that is like trying to market a book with a high ACOS.
Right. Thank you so much, Russ.
Anytime.
Oh, we don't do this nearly enough.
No, I was talking with my friend today, and I was like,
You okay?
no, you should hear this. Someone just
What?
paid $10,000 to this campaign.
What?
Yeah. I don't
Wait, your campaign?
to my campaign.
So much.
I don't know.
Wow.
I don't know what's going on. This clearly is a troll, but yeah, I don't know what to do with this information now.
Oh, wow. I would just track it.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. But yeah,
Is it real?
it's real. But yeah, I'm floored and it's never happened to me before. I specifically don't put a $10,000 reward on here because I assume that like anyone who would do that. Yeah, I saw this email and I was there like, you're funded. I was like, funded. That can't possibly be that can't possibly be true. Like we're $6,000 from goal right now. So yeah,
Do you recognize the pledger?
I do not. I'm going to talk to Oriana about this.
Okay, then.
But I'm very excited, but also like very skeptical.
Right. Yes. Absolutely. Yes. I get that.
Yes. So yeah, now you heard it here first.
Yes. Yes, I
That was
did. Oh, that scared me. I thought we were going to go into something personal.
I wouldn't have talked about that on recorded. But
Oh, okay. All right, then. But yeah, I
yeah,
heard it here. And keep me posted if it's real or not, because I'm like sus because I'm elated, but at the same time, are they doing that to trolls so they get snatched away and then you'd be caught short? Like
yeah, they're definitely going to do that. So what usually happens at this point now is they will slowly decrease their pledge
Mm-hmm.
by the amount equal to what you got on the pledge. So like they'll slowly slide it back because there's no like the highest goal I have is $1,000.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I'm going to talk to Oriana right now. I'm going to email her, but it's very exciting, but also very confusing.
Yeah.
And never happened to me before.
Very sus. It's very
Yeah.
sus. But keep me
All
posted.
right. Will do.
Love you,
All
fellas.
right.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.